Claire didn't plan to see Liam again. Not after last spring. Not after what was almost something but never became anything. She had moved on, or at least tried to. But when Ella called and asked her to drop off a letter at the Hayes family cabin, something in Claire hesitated. Not because she missed him, she told herself, but because it was just a simple task, a favor for a friend. Still, she knew what the cabin meant. She knew who might be behind that door. It was early October, and the Oregon coast was quiet and gray. The wind carried a chill that tugged at her sweater, and leaves rustled beneath her boots as she climbed the porch steps. The wooden planks creaked the same way they had 2 years ago when Liam had walked her to her car after Ella's engagement party. He hadn't kissed her then. He'd wanted to. She saw it in his eyes, but he didn't. And she had driven away, heart tight, breath held, wondering if silence was safer than heartbreak. The door opened before she knocked. And there he was, Liam Hayes, taller than she remembered, slightly unshaven, wearing an old flannel and that same quiet look that once made her feel like she was the only one in the room. His hair was messier, his eyes a little heavier, but the way he looked at her, that hadn't changed. Claire stood there, letter in hand, caught off guard by how easily the past rushed back. "Claire," he said, voice low and familiar, like a song she used to love. "Didn't think I'd see you." She held out the envelope, clearing her throat. "Ella asked me to drop this off." He took it, but his fingers brushed against hers, warm, deliberate, lingering just long enough to make her chest tighten. "You didn't come just for a letter, did you?" he asked quietly, like a dare. Claire looked down at her boots. "I was just here to talk," but the words sounded thin, even to her. She wasn't sure why she dressed a little nicer than usual, or why her heart had started racing the second she parked outside. Maybe she hadn't fully moved on. Maybe some feelings didn't disappear. They just learned how to hide. Liam leaned against the doorway, watching her in that way that made her feel completely seen and completely exposed. He stepped aside. "Want to come in? It's cold." And though she knew she should leave, just hand over the letter and walk away, her feet moved forward, almost on their own. Inside, the cabin was warm, soft lit, smelling of pine wood and faint coffee. The same couch, the same shelf full of dusty paperbacks and Ella's childhood photos. Claire stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, unsure of what to say. Liam was quiet behind her, but not distant. She could feel him watching her, like he always did, patient, unreadable. "It's been a while," he finally said. She turned, half smiling. "You disappeared." He shrugged, stepping closer. "I thought it was easier that way." "Easier? For who?" she asked, and for a moment, their silence said everything they hadn't. He looked at her, really looked, and suddenly, the air between them shifted. He didn't touch her, didn't say anything bold, but there was a pull, unmistakable, something raw. She was just there to talk, she reminded herself. But when his gaze lingered on her lips, soft, slow, as if remembering, Claire knew something was already unraveling. She had crossed a line the second she stepped through that door. And maybe she had wanted to. The cabin hadn't changed much, and that was both comforting and dangerous. Claire stepped inside, her senses instantly flooded with memories, some sweet, some sharp. The wooden beams above still creaked gently with the wind. The same old pine-scented air wrapped around her like an old sweater she wasn't sure she wanted to wear again. In the background, soft music played from the record player Liam had always loved. Norah Jones, her voice warm and haunting, floated through the air like a slow heartbeat. Claire stood by the fireplace, holding the coffee mug he had just handed her, pretending to focus on it. But her thoughts were all over the place. The smell of the brew, the sound of the rain starting up outside, and the nearness of Liam. It was too much and not enough at the same time. Liam moved through the kitchen, casually, but Claire could sense his nervous energy too. They weren't just two old friends catching up. There was something broken between them that neither of them had repaired, and now they were standing right in the middle of it. She glanced at him, his flannel sleeves rolled up, his dark hair falling slightly over his forehead. He still had that quiet strength about him, like he could handle anything. Except maybe this. "You still play your records?" she asked, her voice soft. He looked back, smiling faintly. "Some things stick," he said. "You remember everything, don't you?" she asked. "When it comes to you?" "Yeah," he replied, voice low, almost vulnerable. Claire's heart gave a slow, painful thump. She sat down on the worn couch, the same one they'd once shared stories and secrets on. Liam walked over, his steps careful. He sat beside her, not too close, but close enough for her to feel the warmth from his body. There was silence again, but this time it wasn't awkward. It was full thick with the things they were both trying not to say. She took a sip of the coffee. He looked at her. "Why'd we stop talking?" he asked. She shrugged. "You left." "You could have reached out," he said. "So could you," she replied, her voice more bitter than she expected. Liam didn't answer. Instead, he just watched her, his expression softening. "That night, before I left," he said. Claire turned to look at him. "You almost kissed me," she said. "I know," he whispered. "I wanted to, but I was afraid it would change everything." Her lips parted slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. It already had. Liam leaned in just a little, as if testing something, testing her. The space between them shrank, breath by breath. She could smell him clean, warm, a little like rain. "And now?" she asked. "Now," he repeated, his voice rasping slightly. "Now I think about that night more than I should." Claire's heart pounded. She didn't know if this was a mistake or the beginning of something right. Her mind screamed for caution, but her body didn't move. Her lips tingled with anticipation, her fingers twitching as if they already knew what was coming. There was no kiss, not yet, but everything in the room leaned toward it. Liam's eyes dropped to her lips, and her breath hitched. She didn't pull away. She didn't look away. The fire crackled in the background, and Nora's voice sang of longing. In that moment, Claire realized she hadn't come here just for a letter or a conversation. She had come for the same reason he had opened the door with that look in his eyes, because some unfinished stories don't like to stay that way. Claire had every reason to leave. She could have finished her coffee, thanked him politely, and walked out into the cool Oregon rain like she hadn't felt something shift in her chest. But she didn't. She stayed, even though her heartbeat was loud in her ears and her thoughts were a blur. Something stronger rooted her to that couch beside Liam. Maybe it was the unfinished story between them, or maybe it was the way his presence still made her feel like she belonged. The fire crackled softly in the background, filling the silence with warmth. Liam sat close, too close to be just polite, yet not quite enough for her to lean into. His arm rested on the back of the couch, inches from her shoulder. His knee brushed hers, subtle, casual, but it sent a current through her that made her breath catch. She wanted to say something, anything, but her words felt trapped behind her lips. So much had gone unspoken over the last year. They hadn't just grown apart, they'd stopped themselves before anything real could happen. And now, all of that hesitation hung heavy in the room. She turned slightly, her eyes meeting his. There it was again, that look. The one that always made her feel like he saw through the version of herself she showed the world and into the one she kept hidden. I was just here to talk, she whispered, the words trembling as they left her mouth. Liam's voice was low, a little hoarse when he answered, I know, but maybe we've said enough. His hand reached up gently, brushing a piece of hair from her face. The way he touched her wasn't rushed or demanding, it was soft, careful, like he was trying to memorize her again. Her heart pounded as his fingertips lingered at her cheek. She could barely breathe. He leaned in, not all the way, just enough to feel her breath. Claire didn't move. She couldn't. Her entire body felt suspended in that moment between thought and action, between fear and surrender. When his lips finally touched hers, it wasn't the kind of kiss she had imagined all those months ago. It was deeper. It was slow and aching, like two people finally letting go of everything they'd held back. His hand slipped behind her neck, pulling her just a little closer, and she kissed him back with the kind of quiet hunger that comes from too much time spent pretending not to care. There was no rush, no need to prove anything, just the soft, steady rhythm of a kiss that said everything their voices couldn't. When they finally pulled apart, her eyes stayed closed for a moment, as if afraid the real world might undo what had just happened. Liam didn't speak, neither did she, but the silence between them had changed. It wasn't heavy anymore, it was full of unspoken understanding, full of breathless relief. Claire rested her forehead gently against his. His hand stayed at her waist, grounding her, holding her. I miss this, he finally whispered, his voice like gravel softened by emotion. I missed you. She didn't know what tomorrow would look like or what this moment meant beyond now, but for the first time in a long time, she felt something real, something raw. They stayed like that for a while, holding onto the quiet, letting their bodies speak the language that their hearts had known all along. In that space, surrounded by old wood, fading music, and soft rain outside the window, Claire realized she hadn't come to talk. Not really. She had come to see if something they almost had still lived between them. And with just one kiss, she knew the answer. The room had grown quiet, but the silence between Claire and Liam felt peaceful now, like something long and restless had finally settled. The fire flickered low, casting golden shadows across the walls, and outside, the rain tapped softly against the windows as if it knew this moment was something delicate. They sat close, their foreheads gently touching, hands resting together without tension. No words were needed, not yet. Claire could feel her heartbeat slowing, grounding itself in the warmth of him beside her. The kiss still lingered on her lips, soft and honest, as if it had carved out space in her chest where something broken used to live. She'd been holding so much inside, old hopes, quiet doubts, unanswered questions, and with that kiss, something opened. Not fully, but enough. Enough to hope again. Liam exhaled slowly, as if trying to steady himself too. His fingers grazed the side of her hand, a silent reassurance. Then he spoke, barely above a whisper. What do we do now? The question hung there, simple but impossible. Claire's eyes met his, and in them, she saw something vulnerable, like the boy she remembered and the man he had become were both waiting for her answer. She could have made a joke. She could have dodged it, but she didn't. That depends, she said, her voice low, steady. Are you still the guy who runs away when it gets real? Liam blinked, then smiled sadly, rubbing his thumb across her knuckles. I was, he admitted, but I'm not anymore. His eyes softened, almost pleading. I came back, Claire, not just to see family. I think part of me was hoping you might still be here. Those words cracked something open inside her. Claire felt tears prick the corners of her eyes, not from pain but from the weight of hope. She had spent so long trying to forget the way Liam made her feel, so long convincing herself it hadn't meant as much as it did, but it had. It still did. I didn't know if I'd see you again, she said, her voice catching. And I didn't think I could survive going through all that again if you left. Liam reached up, gently wiping the tear that slipped down her cheek. Then let's not waste this, he said. We don't have to figure it all out tonight, but we can start something real. For the first time in a long time, Claire let herself believe in the possibility. The idea of being loved the way she needed to be, not rushed, not halfway, but with patience and depth. She leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder, breathing in the scent of wood smoke and comfort. The rain outside deepened, but inside the cabin, the air was warm, still, and full of something sacred. It wasn't about passion alone, it was about peace, about finding someone who felt like home. Liam kissed the top of her head, his hand slowly moving through her hair, and she closed her eyes, letting herself feel it all, the fear, the longing, the sweetness of a second chance. They didn't talk much after that. There was no need. They sat in the quiet, letting their bodies lean into each other, holding hands, letting time slow down. For now, this was enough. Maybe later there'd be questions and plans and hard conversations. But tonight, there was only this: to people. Finally ready, finally seen. And in the gentle silence, Claire knew. She hadn't just come to talk. She'd come to see if his lips still knew how to speak the truth her heart had been waiting to hear. And they did.